Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Ask a Property Manager, episode 29. Today is July 15th, 2020. Coming to you live from Studio 2.0 here at Own Buffalo. I'm Andrew Schultz, principal broker of Own Buffalo, Inc. And on today's show, we're going to be analyzing an investment property several different ways. If you're a house hacker or a first-time home buyer, this episode is for you. Before we jump into that, I do want to plug our social media. New episodes of Ask a Property Manager drop every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. You can catch those live on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Buffalo Foreclosed Homes. Those same episodes get posted on the same day over on our YouTube page. You can catch the link for that over off of our website, ownbuffalo.com. We also post a lot of content over there that doesn't get posted to Facebook, so make sure that you are following both of those sites. Feel free to follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/ownbuffalo. Last but not least, feel free to grab a free 30-minute consultation over at ownbuffalo.com. This is what we have left open for this week. A couple time slots, two tomorrow and two Friday. And then for next week, a little hectic for us in the office next week, so there's only a few appointments available. So that's a great option for someone who is looking to ask a question or needs to have some private consultation or something like that. They don't feel comfortable asking a question in the comments, whatever the case may be. Grab one of those sessions. It's free. It's 30 minutes. We can do a Zoom call, a phone call, whatever's easiest for you. Definitely take advantage of that. While we are talking about our social media, I do want to mention that the Rent Prep for Landlords podcast is coming up tomorrow. New episode tomorrow morning. This week we are talking about a drastic drop in apartment sales in Manhattan and what that might mean for the rest of the country, how to handle tenant leftovers, how to safely show occupied apartments, and a whole bunch more. Don't miss out on that. New episodes of the Rent Prep for Landlords podcast drop every Thursday morning. You can catch that at rentprep.com/podcast or anywhere else that you would typically listen to a podcast. I know it's all over the place. I use Spotify, it's on there. I use Stitcher, it's on there. I know it's on Apple and just about everywhere else that you can find podcasts. Definitely tune in. Lots of great information to be had there. So all that being said, we're going to jump right into our, give me 1 second. We're going to switch over to desktop here in one moment. I just want to make sure that I have my screen set up properly before I jump you guys over. All right, so we're going to spend some time today looking at an investment property, a duplex down in South Buffalo. We're going to take a look at 3 recently sold comps as well in the neighborhood so that you can get a feel for what the neighborhood values look like. And then I'm going to break this deal down a few different ways to see, does it make sense for the typical investor? Does it make sense for someone who's trying to house hack or owner occupy or whatever the case may be? We'll look at the deal a few different ways, and you guys can really get a feel for whether or not this is something that might be worth pursuing. So we're down in South Buffalo, which is my favorite neighborhood to work in. We've been working down there for a lot of years. We do manage a lot of property down there. And our subject property today is 49 Ryan Street in South Buffalo. So this is, as I mentioned, a duplex property. I'm going to switch this over to, there we go, different view. This is a duplex property. There are 2 3-bedroom apartments stacked one on top of another, which is pretty typical for South Buffalo. The rents that are being reported are $600 and $600, which is actually really, really low for a 3-bedroom in South Buffalo. But we'll get into that a little bit further down the line here. First, I just want to take a look at some of the photos. Actually, let me back up. We'll mention that this is currently an active property. It's listed for $140,000. It's 2244 square foot. And I'd already mentioned that it's a duplex, two times 3-bedroom apartments. So let's jump in and look at some of the photos here. You can see the interior has had some work over the years. Updates here and there, paint, flooring. Let's see here. We're in the kitchen. The kitchen cabinets are a little bit older. Looks like they could probably be rejuvenated with a little bit of work. You do have some odd flooring down here. It looks like an older style tile that could probably stand to be gone over if necessary. Keep scrolling through here. Some more kitchen shots. This is painted wood paneling. If you've watched any of my other property analysis videos, I've talked multiple times about how much brighter a space looks when you can paint that dark wood paneling. And this is a classic example. This space would be so much darker, this bedroom would be so much smaller, feel so much smaller, if you hadn't taken the time to scruff and paint that. Now looking into the bathroom, pretty straightforward, another bedroom. And again, this flooring is something that can be dealt with as the apartments turn over and things like that. It's not like you have to go in there and knock that flooring out right away. So pretty straightforward. And let's see here. It looks like we might be into the second apartment now. You do have wood paneling up here. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. Again, that same style of tile flooring. The nice thing about this tile flooring is if it's in good shape, in a lot of instances, if you're doing like a vinyl plank or a laminate or something like that, you'll probably be able to lay right over the top of that, which is pretty convenient. Looks like you've got some actual tile here in the kitchen, but these cabinets are definitely on the older side. You can see that they've already had some repairs done here. They're pretty much what I would consider end of life. They're going to be due for some replacement soon. And it's the cabinets and it's the doors. You can see that there's some wear and tear on the actual cabinets themselves. Second bathroom. See what I mean with the paneling here? You can tell this has not been painted. This has been painted, obviously, and there's a big difference in the coloration there. Having that wood paneling painted makes a lot of difference when it goes to the light in a room and stuff like that. Quick peek into the basement. I see 2 furnaces. I see, let's see, 1 hot water tank. I'm sure there's a second one that I just can't see here. We'll skip through here. Jump back. There's your hot water tank and the 2 furnaces, as I'd mentioned. And actually, you can see through this mirror over here, there is another hot water tank tucked in behind that furnace. Let's see, lower and upper electric panels look like those are probably 100 amp services coming in. A couple of aerial shots, and then we're back to the beginning. So that's going to be our subject property. That's the property we're going to spend most of our time talking about today. I want to take a quick look at a couple of sold properties in the neighborhood, and these are sold within the last 6 months, last 180 days, so that you can get a feel for other homes in the neighborhood. And keep in mind that as we're going through these other properties, the subject property we're talking about is listed for $140,000. So this is 9 South Ryan. This is actually right on the opposite side of Seneca Street. We'll switch the view on this. There we go. This was listed for $114,500 and sold for $137,000, and you'll see why when we get into the pictures here. Again, this is very similar in square footage. This actually is reporting the exact same square footage at 2244. It's also a 3-bed, and it's going to be stacked just like the other one, an upper-lower duplex. They're not reporting any rents on this. And a 3-3 in South Buffalo. You know, the subject property was reporting $600 a month for each unit. That's incredibly low. If you're not getting like $850 at a minimum in South Buffalo for a 3-bed, some of our updated 3-beds in South Buffalo, we're getting $975, $950, somewhere in there. So you can definitely push the rents up in this neighborhood a little bit if you update the units. Don't think that you're going to get top dollar for a trash unit. So you're going to have to reinvest in the property in order to make that happen. So we'll take a look at the photos on this property, and you can see this is one that sold for $137,000. So comparing these photos to the last photo set that we were looking at, you can just see that there's a lot of difference here. You're not going to find the wood paneling. You're going to see mostly it looks like drywall or plaster and lath, but this looks like it's been drywalled to me, to be honest with you. This property's in pretty good shape. Updated bath, some bedrooms. Everything's got nice carpet throughout. I don't love carpet in rental properties, but I wouldn't replace it until it needs replaced. Now we're into the upstairs. And the same thing, you've got some nice updates here. Backyard. So you can see there's a big difference between the property that we just looked at and the property that we're looking at right now. This property we're looking at right now is sold for $137,000, was listed for $114,500, so there was a bit of a bidding war on this. Sold for $137,000, and the property that we just looked at, which I would say is probably not in quite as nice a condition as the one that we're looking at right now, this sold for $3,000 less than the other one is listed for. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind as we're working our way through here. Let me close that. This is the next one we're going to look at. This is 28 Gary Street. This is again a 3-3 duplex, upper lower. No rents reported on this one. This is a little bit smaller in square footage, 2226 versus 2244. This property was listed at 159.9 and sold at 161. So let's go in and take a look. No rents being reported on this. Let's take a look at this property. We have a metal roof here, which is kind of unique. You don't see a ton of metal roofing in Buffalo yet. There are some people that are starting to opt for it, but it's still pretty uncommon to see metal roofing. You're typically seeing asphalt being installed here in the Buffalo region still. You do have, looks like original hardwoods that have been refinished. Scrolling through here. This property's in pretty good shape. It looks like the walls are intact. You've got carpet. That looks to be like a linoleum down there. It's definitely not a tile. I'm going to say that's probably a linoleum. Older cabinets. Those are probably pressboard cabinet doors if I had to venture a guess. You can see on this wall, this is definitely plaster and lath. You can just see from the imperfections and things like that. Not a bad looking property. The hardwoods appear to be in really good shape, which is nice. And keep in mind that this property sold for $161 compared to our subject property, which is listed right now at $140. So you can see the bathrooms have had some work here, and it looks like we're out back. These are smaller photos. You're not going to be able to get as much info from this. This kitchen's had some work, though. You can tell those are newer cabinets, newer countertop. Let's keep moving forward here. Bathroom has had some updates to it, new shower and things like that. So I don't love these small photos. I wish they were a little bit larger to make it easier to see, but you can see that this unit's in pretty good shape, and that's why it commanded the dollar that it did. This went for, what did I say, 161. So not a bad looking property for 161. And our final comp that I want to take a look at, we're going to breeze through this one because I'm pretty sure we used it as a comp on another property, or I'm sorry, on another analysis video recently. This is going to be 213 Stevenson. This was listed for $140 and sold for $149.9. A little smaller than our subject at 2,200 square foot. Guys, the square footage differences I'm talking about are negligible. You're not really even making huge adjustments for square footage when you're talking about less than 50 square foot. Again, this is a 3-3 duplex. This is listed with rents of $800 and $800. So you can see where the $600 on our subject is just really, really low. Even this $800 is a touch on the low side. As I mentioned, if you have an updated unit, you could definitely push those into the nines. This property looks like it needs a roof if I'm taking a guess here. It's a little blurry on that photo, but it looks like it might need some roofing. And this is the one that's got a lot of blurry photos on the inside, but you can see the flooring here. Nice hardwood floor, looks to be in good shape. Kitchens are a little bit older, but not in too bad a shape. A little bit of a cabinet door repair that needs to be done there. You could probably get by painting these cabinets if they're not in too bad a shape and brightening up the space a little bit. Looks like this backsplash is a little bit more modern style, so that's probably been done more recently. Bathroom has had some work done to it. Second kitchen, looks like this has newer kitchen cabinetry. Tile floor, that is definitely a ceramic tile. Bathroom, newer vanity, carpet in the bedrooms, pretty straightforward. Garage is pretty rough. The exterior is a little bit rougher on this property. So this was listed at $149 and sold for $140. If I had to venture a guess as to why, I would say that probably the roof might have been one of the bigger detracting factors on this one. The apartments themselves don't look too bad, but that would be my guess, would be that they need a little bit more on for the roof, basically. So that would be my thought as to why that is the case, why we have a sale price at the $140 there. So I want to jump back down to 49 Ryan, which is our subject property, and talk about this in a little bit more depth here, and then we're going to start looking at the numbers. So again, this is listed for $140. Based on the three comps that we showed you, I guess you could say that there's definitely comps that support a value in that $140 range. Is $140 the right price for this property? We'll get into that a little bit later. Let's see, $600 for the rents. 2 electric meters, 2 gas meters, 2 heat units. I always like to see that. We've already been through the photos. Year built, 1900. All of those other properties, I didn't specifically look at the year built, but they're all going to be right around that same time frame. That's kind of the age of this neighborhood. So we've pretty much looked at all of the things that I want to look at on the property itself. Let's start talking about the numbers now. So we're going to look at this a couple different ways. I'll start by saying that this investment property analysis sheet is completely free. If you're interested in a copy of this, drop us a line on Facebook or on YouTube. You can also send an email to hello@ownbuffalo.com, and I will gladly send you over a copy of this free of charge. You can use this to analyze properties up to, I think, 20 units if my math is right there. Nice little tool, completely free. Feel free to use it. That's why we made it. So we're going to start with a purchase price of $140, since that is the true purchase or the list price of the property currently. We're going to leave repairs needed blank right now. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Actual cash invested. So we're going to look at this as though it's a true investment property that you're taking a conventional mortgage on, and you're going to put 20% down. So 20% on this property is $28,000. We'll come down here, 3-bed, 1-bath units. There's 2 of those. Current rents are $600 and $600. Property taxes. So for property taxes, City of Buffalo just went through a major reassessment. So I want to, let me go ahead and scroll down here. All right, taxes. So they are claiming assessed value of $62,000 and total taxes of $1,092. I think that those might be old numbers. So what I'm going to do is I've already put in when Buffalo went through the reassessment, I automatically adjusted our tax calculator in here. So if they're saying $61,000 for assessed value, I want to go back and double check that real quick before I stick my foot in my mouth. $62,000. All right, so we come up with a homestead tax, 1 to 4 units of $1,701. Their tax is, listed at $1,092. I'm going to go with mine. I always try to work off the more conservative numbers, so I'm going to go $1,701. Gas and electric shouldn't really be a big deal on this property. You're only really going to have those during turnover because the tenants are responsible for their own gas and electric. Water and sewer bills in the City of Buffalo, I typically tell people to plan for about $800 over the course of the year, about $200 a quarter for your water bill on a duplex. And that'll fluctuate. You'll see sometimes more usage in the summer, less in the winter, whatever. One thing that tends to use a lot of water is having a ton of washers and dryers, so that's something to keep in mind. User fee, which is the garbage pickup in the City of Buffalo, is going to be about $200 for the year. Vacancy, I always tell people to plan on 10% of your rents for vacancy. And you can see our gross annual income up here is $14,400. So that would make our vacancy $1,440. And I'm going to do the same thing for maintenance and management. And for insurance, I'm just going to drop a placeholder number of $1,000 in. Insurance on a duplex in Buffalo typically is going to run you between $800 and $1,200. I like to use $1,000. It's a nice round number, and it usually works out pretty well there. I do want to take a second to touch on these 3 numbers here: vacancy, maintenance, and management. So many people, when they're analyzing investment properties, forget to take into account those 3 factors. And those are the 3 factors that can absolutely sink your investment property. If you're not factoring in for the fact that eventually a tenant is going to move out and you're going to have to do some work on the property, that's completely on you. You really have to make sure that you're factoring in as many different things as possible when you're analyzing these properties. Vacancy, maintenance, and management all need to be factored in, even if you're self-managing the property, because there may come a time when you're no longer able to self-manage the property. You may have to hire a property manager, or you may get to the point where you have enough rental property that it makes sense for you to hire someone to work directly for you. So factoring management in on the front end means that you're going to be able to afford it on the back end when you actually need it. So definitely factor in management, maintenance, and vacancy every single time you do a property analysis. That's my little soapbox speech on that for the day. We'll move back into looking at the numbers here. So mortgage payment. So on this mortgage payment number, I want the principal and the interest only. And the reason for that is because a typical PITI payment, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, is what you're going to be paying to a mortgage company or to your bank, whatever the case may be. We've already factored in our insurance, and we've already factored in our property taxes up here. So we don't need to factor those into our mortgage payment. We want just the principal and interest. So what I'm going to do is come down to our mortgage calculator here. I'm going to say that our purchase price is $140. Interest rates, I checked this morning. Interest rates on a 30-year conventional are running around 3.5, 3.75. So we're going to go with that. That is a 30-year conventional. And I'm going to say we're putting that 20% down. So our loan amount is going to be $112. Loan start date, we'll just change that to August 1. Monthly property tax amount, I'm going to hit 0 in here because we've already factored it into our spreadsheet on the front page. So if you want, you can also look at an amortization table and it'll show you exactly what you're going to be paying month by month, year by year. It tells you what's interest, what's principal. It'll factor your property taxes in here as well if you want it to. Really, the number I'm looking for here is the yearly loan payment, which is $62.24. We're going to jump back to our analysis spreadsheet, $62.24 for our mortgage payment. And there you have it. That's all of our numbers dropped in here. We'll throw some zeros in there just to close that out. We'll scroll back up. We're checking our income box now to make sure everything is filled in. Total units of 2, total units occupied are 2, so you're at 100% occupancy rate. We're not going to claim any other income from laundry or garages or anything like that, but if you get into a situation where you're analyzing a bigger property, that might be a line item that you need for laundry or for garage rentals or storage unit rentals or something like that. So let's come up here and take a look at the numbers now. Our cash-on-cash return, which is the net operating income divided by the actual cash invested. So our net income, not including the mortgage, is call it $6,400. Our actual cash invested is that $28,000. That's where you're coming up with the cash-on-cash. This is typically most valuable in a finance transaction. It factors in the mortgage payment, the principal and interest, as well as the taxes and the insurance. Let me just grab this, and you can kind of see everything that's getting factored in here off of that. And guys, the nice thing is if you want a copy of the spreadsheet, you can tinker with it, change it, whatever you want to do with it. The only thing I ask is that if you make changes to it, send me a copy. I always like to see how people change things. The cap rate on this is 4.5. That's net operating income without your mortgage divided by your total investment cost. So that would be in this instance, the purchase price would be the total investment cost, the 140. And we're looking at the net operating income. So again, we'll pull this up so you can see the 140 minus that net income. And for net income here, I took my gross minus everything here except for the mortgage payment. So that's why that's set up that way. I don't love the numbers on this as it sits right now, especially because I think that the rents are incredibly low. I also think that the property is going to need a little bit of work. So I think that 140, at that 140 price point, I mean, you could see that there's some flooring that needs to be done in there. You're going to want to do some updates to those kitchens eventually. You're going to want to factor in for some repairs. So I'm going to say, let's start by saying what happens if we bump the rents up. So let's take these rents to, let's go $850. And I'm going to say, let's see here, down, if we're going to $850 on those rents. And this is assuming right now that you haven't put any work into the property. Got to adjust our numbers down here. Now keep in mind, our mortgage hasn't changed. All we've done is raise the rents. All we've done is bring more cash flow into the property. And you can see that the cash-on-cash return immediately springs up to over 15%. And that's basically your net operating income divided by your actual cash invested. So basically, that's your return on the $28,000 that you actually invested in the property to purchase it, because that's on a mortgage transaction. Your cap rate, which is your non-mortgage transaction, you're at 7.5%. That's a little low still. I like to see at least a 10% cap rate when we're talking about the city of Buffalo. So now let's look at this if we were able to bump those rents up to $950. And again, we're going to have to assume that there's going to be work that's done to this property. At this point, let's say that to get those rents up to $950, that you're going to spend $7,500 a unit on updates, whether it be flooring or kitchens or whatever. We're going to say $15,000 here. So the repairs needed, $15,000. Actual cash invested is going to be your $28,000 plus your $15,000. So you're going to be at $43,000 cash invested now. So that's going to have an impact for sure on your cash-on-cash return. Again, your cap rate hasn't really changed here. Let's see, do we need to adjust any of our other numbers? 2280. All right, so we've adjusted our numbers, and you can see that we're coming up still. We're still not at that 10% cap rate that I would like to see. We're coming up closer to 8%. And you can see where our cash-on-cash return actually went down a little bit. The reason for that being that we have invested more in the property now. So realistically speaking, if you can get this for 130 and put 15 into it, so let's see, 130, 20% of 130 is going to be 26,000 plus our 15. Is that right? Give me 1 second. Let me do some math here. 0.2 is 26,000. Okay, so that was correct. 26,000 plus the 15 that we're going to have to put into it. We're going to say 41. And this is really, I'm going to leave the rents at that 950 because realistically speaking, we're going to be putting this money in to get to those 950 rents. Just check down here to see if there's any numbers that we need to make a change to. We do need to change our mortgage because we're only at 130 on the mortgage now. And we'll leave the interest rate the same. The loan amount is going to change. The loan amount will be 104, if my math is right in my head here. Our yearly loan payment is now down to $57.80. So come back in here, change that mortgage payment on an annual basis, come back up, and you can see where we're at in terms of the cash on cash and the cap rate. So that's kind of where we're at on, does this make sense as an investment property? If you're strictly buying it as an investment property, you have no intention of living in it, you just want to buy it and cash flow it, that's where you're at. I don't love the cap rate. I'd like to see it a little bit higher, but there's a multitude of different ways to bring that up some. I honestly think that this property is probably not too bad, depending on what the interior looks like when you physically go and look at it. Again, with the rents being at 600, I know that you're going to have to do some work when you turn those apartments over, so that's something to keep in mind as well. But what I want to look at now is if you're a first-time home buyer, or if you're a house hacker where you're going to be living in the house and either renting by the bedroom or whatever the case may be. So let's look at those numbers a little bit here. And what we're going to do, I'm going to have to probably redo most of the spreadsheet. So bear with me here. We're going to go back to that 140 purchase price. We're going to go, we'll keep with that 15,000 in repairs needed. Let's see here. So it's going to be 43,000. That actual cash invested is the down payment, which on a $140,000 home, 20% down is 28,000, and then your 15 for repairs is where that actual cash invested is coming from. So let's see here. Let's see. We're going to leave those alone for the time being. We'll leave all that alone for the time being. Mortgage calculator. Won't need to change. Yeah, we will. $112,000, so that puts us back at that 6224. Our mortgage numbers back up here. So all right, so we're back at looking at the property as though we bought it for full list price and put 15,000 in repairs into it for a total investment of 155,000. You can see where your actual cash invested is, and you can see your cash on cash and your cap rate. So right now your cash on cash is 1403 and your cap is 7.91. I'm just jotting those down so that I can come back to those later. So let's talk about what happens if you want to try to house hack this thing, because that's where things could really get kind of interesting. So if you're a first-time home buyer and you have some friends that you want to move in with, maybe in the 2 bedrooms that you're in your apartment, and then you want to just rent the upstairs apartment out or whatever the case may be, let's see what the numbers would look like in that instance. So for the sake of round numbers, we're going to say 950 divided by 325. All right, we're going to say that you're going to charge $325 for the other 2 bedrooms in the upper unit, we'll say. So that's going to bring in $650 a month. You're not going to charge yourself rent for your bedroom, obviously, but you will have income coming in from those other 2 units. I went ahead and took that $950 and divided it out by 3. It came out to $316 and change. I rolled it up to $325 just to make the numbers a little bit easier to work with here. So $325 for the bedroom. And then the upstairs apartment, we're going to assume that you're going to get that $950 a month. So we're going to leave that number alone. So the real magic here, let's see, we can adjust these. I'm actually going to leave the vacancy management and maintenance numbers alone here. I don't really feel the need to alter those. The real interesting thing that happens here is when it comes to the actual mortgage itself. So let's jump back to that mortgage calculator. We're going to say that your loan amount is only 3.5% down, that you're going to come in and buy this property on an FHA mortgage. So at 140.035, 3.5% down, you're going to put $4,900 down. $4,900 comes out to 135.1 is your loan amount. So you can see that your yearly loan amount jumped up substantially to 7508. We'll put that in there. And let's come back up and look at the numbers. So as you can see, the cap rate and the cash on cash return dropped drastically. You went from a 14% to a 2.5% on your cash on cash. You went from a 7.9 cap down to a 5.6 cap essentially. Your net operating income, which by the way, this does not include your mortgage, is your $86.59. So let's look at it from that perspective. I'm going to drag calculator over here. $86.59 minus the mortgage amount, which was $75.08, means that at the end of the day, at the end of the year, assuming all of the numbers stay the way that you put them into the spreadsheet here, which, I mean, obviously there's no guarantee of that. This is all a spreadsheet. This is all numbers in space. It's all a snapshot in time. Things change every single day. So that being said, all things considered, by the time you pay all of the bills, pay for maintenance, pay the mortgage, pay for taxes, pay for insurance, and you're living for free because you're not paying rent down here in this box. You've already cut your rent out, so you're living for free and making $11.50 a year free and clear cash. So that's above and beyond all of the expenses, the mortgage, everything else, and not paying rent. So you're now living for free and making $11.50 a year just to own that property. And don't forget, you're probably not paying a property manager while you're living in the property. So you're also going to have that $22.80 that you can factor back in. You're making money hand over fist. You're making an extra $285 a month and living for free in this apartment. And again, this is at that purchase price of $140 and putting 15 grand worth of work into it. If you're handy, you can do a lot of the work yourself, maybe even save some cash. You've got some good options there. So, you know, the South Buffalo duplex is definitely an option if you're considering something like a house hack where you're looking to live with some people. You don't mind having roommates. I mean, I know when I came out of college, my first apartment, we had 5 people. 5 people in a 6-bedroom. I'm sorry, 5 people in a 3-bedroom apartment. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. And the place stunk so bad. I would go back to it in a heartbeat if I had the opportunity. Man, I miss living with those guys. That was a lot of fun. So anyway, there you have it. That's what it looks like if you were to house hack something like this. A house hack might be the right play. Yeah, your cash on cash and your cap rate aren't great, but when you're not looking at it from that perspective, when you're looking at it from the perspective of you're living for free and taking some free cash flow away from the property on a yearly basis. And by the way, don't forget all of the other benefits that you would see, such as appreciation in property value and depreciation on your taxes to offset that income. This could really be one of the better moves that you could make if you were looking to do a house hack. So that's my 2 cents on that. Address of this property is 49 Ryan Street in Buffalo. This is not my listing. Let me see if I can get the name of the list agent here and drag this over off screen so that I can pull that info up. Let's see here. If you want to see the property, I will definitely show it to you. You can reach our office at 716-608-3200. The property is listed by Ashley Clank with Howard Hanna. If you're interested and want to reach out to her directly, thank you, Ashley, for letting me use your listing. And there you guys have it. That is our property analysis for South Buffalo. If you're looking to do a house hack, or if you're looking to just buy an investment property, does it make sense if you're just the investor looking to buy something and just want cash flow? Kind of not. I don't know as though I would jump on it with the cap rate not being over 10%. That's really one of the things that I look for. That being said, because we have so many properties in that neighborhood, I might be tempted to just jump on it anyway, knowing that it's that much more market share in that neighborhood. We love that neighborhood. We do a lot of work down there. We have a lot of properties that we manage in that area. It's one of our favorite neighborhoods in Western New York. If you're house hacking, you saw the math. It certainly works. It's definitely something to think about. So that pretty much wraps us up here for today, guys. I want to jump back over and plug our social one last time before I let you go. Thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. These episodes of Ask a Property Manager are one of my favorite things to do on a weekly basis. I love producing them, and you guys can always help me to improve by dropping a question either in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube, and I can probably pick up your question and answer it in a future episode. If you enjoyed this content, or if we brought some value to your day, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. YouTube and Facebook both push videos based on community feedback, and every like, every comment, every subscription, and every share help us to grow and reach more people, and it's super important for us to be able to share the knowledge that we have with as many people as we can. Next week's episode will be live on July 22nd, 10 a.m. Eastern. We're going to be back with another show that you don't want to miss. Thank you all so much for watching. This is Andrew Schultz with Own Buffalo, and we'll see you next week.